Thank you very much, Lori, for putting together this lovely spread for the Shiur. This year's Shiur, as usual, dedicated to Nishmat Savatim Orati Chava Bracha Bat Ben Zion Halevi, a blessed memory, my Bubby Eva, a filler of blessed memory. I'm trying something new this year. Every year I try to do something a little bit new. This year, as you can see, I'm not going to kill as many trees. So I'm handing out the main sources that I want to look at tonight. But I have a lot of other sources. We're going to sort of cycle through them. I'll tell you what I want to try to do tonight, which is, again, a little bit different than we've done in the past. In the past, it's usually entirely a frontal lecture. So this time, a little bit different. Chewy does not get one. Everybody else gets one. First Shiur involving a dog in the room. But okay, so far he's well behaved. And the Shiur each year I dedicated memory to my Bubby. She was a very creative person in many ways, in terms of art and different things. That's how I remember her, and she was terrific at playing. I realized over the years I've given Shiurim on different subjects in halacha and in hashkafa. But one thing that I'm hoping you'll walk out of here tonight, aside from delicious taste of donuts and maybe and fruit and everything else. Yeah, not one person touched? What, you make brachas? All right, anyway, because they came from another Chanuka party where everyone was loading up on carbs, is to learn a little bit about Hanism, and particularly in our moment, so that for the rest of Chanuka, and all the times we'll be saying Hanism, which if you remove the words and you just want to say it as a tune, it goes like this, right? Because we talked about at the ritual committee, about the banging every single time. So Al Hanisim is a very, very old prayer. The tefillah of Al Hanisim is included in the Shemona Esrei, and we have it from very early sources. We're going to be saying it 3 times a day for 8 days, not only in the Amidah, but also in benching. So the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Tuf Reish Pei Bet that one needs to recite it both in the Amidah and in Birkat Hamazon. But if you forget, you don't have to repeat it, which is interesting. If you forget Ya'alav Yavo, typically you have to repeat, but not Al Hanisim. It seems to not be on the same channel as Ya'alav Yavo or other editions, things like that. What I want to try to do is to understand the value of Al Hanisim, what it's endeavoring to teach us. I want to elicit some of your questions about it, I guess. I gave it to you here, Hebrew and English. The English is a loose translation. All translations are interpretations. So maybe you like it, maybe not. Maybe I don't like the words that came out in English that spat out of the machine, aka ChatGPT, that I fed it into to translate it for me just on the fly. Tell me what the translation. So that's the tefillah I want to focus on. It's really page 1. But in order to understand this, one of those comprehensive histories that we have in halacha is on the back of this sheet, and that is the Rambam here in Hilchot Megillah and Chanuka. I'll put it up on the screen if you prefer it there, but I'm reading from the sheet just like you, so we'll read it together. And you have an English translation as well. The Rambam, by way of introduction, for those who don't already know, you probably already know, is extremely well formulated. He does not waste language. There's no florid expression for the Rambam. When the Rambam writes something, he's giving it to you in the most terse, concatenated form, and that is what engenders an entire library of people trying to understand the Rambam. So I'm using this text of the Rambam to then spark our understanding, but also some questions that we'll have about Al Hanisim. Okay, so bear with me. So the Rambam, Halacha Aleph, and the English loose translation again from the machine. I put it in ChatGPT, spit it out. So is it accurate? Did it make things up? I don't know. B'bayit shenik shemalchu Yavan gazu gzerot al Yisrael ubatlu da'atam v'lo yinichu otam la'asok b'torah v'mitzvot. Second Temple period, there were decrees upon the Jewish people to try to cancel the religion, to get rid of the halachas. They didn't want them to keep Torah mitzvot. Upashtu yadam b'mamonam uvivnotehem v'nichnasu laheichel parzu bo pirtzot v'timurat taharot. They stretched out their hands against Jewish property, Jewish women. They came into the sanctuary in Yerushalayim. They created many breaches there. They defiled everything that was pure. V'tzalin liso me'od mipnehem v'lachatzum lachatz gadol. They oppressed the Jews and put them under great pressure. Till the God of our fathers had mercy upon them. Voshiam miyadam v'itzilam, and He saved them. V'gavru b'nei Chashmonai kohanim agdolim v'haragum V'hoshiu Yisrael mi'adam, ve'emidu melech min ha'kohanim, v'chazra malchut Yisrael liYisrael, yatar 200 shana ad ha'churban hasheni. That was a big mouthful. God saved us from their hands, and the Bnei Chashmonai, who were priests, who were Kohanim, they Kohanim HaGedolim, the great priests. They weren't really high priests. They were the great priests, because they couldn't all be high priests. There's only one in a generation. So they overcame. They were victorious. They killed off the enemies. That's what the Rambam writes. And they saved the Jewish people from the hands of the enemies, and they put a Jewish king from among the Kohanim, and for more than 200 years, Jewish people had independence in the land of Israel. That's the Rambam writes. He gives you a comprehensive history, and right away your eyes should go wide. Why is the Rambam telling us history? We don't need history. The Rambam is telling us, the Mishnah Torah, a book of halachot, right? But what could you answer to my leading question? Why does the Rambam have to tell you the history here of Chanuka? Pesach has a book. Purim has a book. Sukkot and Shavuos, they all have a book. Chanukah has no book. No, none of those books. Sefer HaMakkabim, Sefer Chashmonim, Yosifon, none of them are authorized books. Chachamim could have written a book. They chose Dafka. We're not writing a book. There's no book over here. Everything is Ba'al Peh. Everything is just telling the story. Now the Rambam is writing a book, but he's writing the book in the 12th century, and he's inscribing the rationale behind the whole history of it, right? To which he explicates here, right? Now, what was not mentioned in Halacha Aleph at all? Hasn't mentioned any one major aspect of Chanukah. The oil didn't come up. It's not in Halacha Aleph. Halacha Bet, U'shigav Yisrael lo'iveihem v'ibdum b'chamisha v'esrim b'chodesh kislev haya v'nichnasu laheichal v'lo matzu shemen tahor b'mikdash el pach echad v'lo yabo lahadlik el yom echad bilvad v'yidliku mimenu neirot ha'maracha shmona yamim ad shekatshu zeitim v'uktu shemen tahor. So now when the Jewish people overcame the enemies, they destroyed them. 25th of Kislev, I spoke about it tonight. The halachic side of that, they go into the mikdash, they find one cruse of oil, and it's 1 day's worth, and they are able to be madlik 8 days. By the way, it is incorrect. Many people think it means that they lit the lights and it stayed lit for 8 days. But it didn't, because it's actually a mitzvah to light the lights every day. So they lit it, it went out, they came back, the oil was still there. They lit it again. A day went by, right? It's not that it was 8 straight days that it kept going, but that the same oil could be used and reused. Yeah? So Halacha Bet finally tells you about the nace of the oil. Why I say finally? Because when I think of Chanukah, and about you, I think about Hadlakat HaNeirot. Most of the Shulchan Aruch is actually about the halachot of Hadlakat HaNeirot, and there's not very much about the war. Actually, there doesn't seem to be any commemoration about the war in terms of the mitzvot. So then we come to welcome. Come take a seat. Yeah, it's open. Yeah. There's no reserved seating at this year. Everyone can sit wherever you want. There's one sheet, double-sided. Everyone should hold one sheet, double-sided. And I'm on the second, page 2. The bottom says page 2. And we're just learning through the Rambam just to get our land legs before we start analyzing Al Hanisim. Again, the goal tonight is, when you walk out tonight, you should have some ideas, maybe some deeper ideas, what is going on in Al Hanisim, why it's such a significant tefillah that we say over and over and over again. Halacha Gimel. Umipnei zeh, on account of this, hitkinu chachamim sheba'oto ador, sheyu shmonat hayamim ha'elu, shetchilatan milel chamisha ve'esrim b'kislev, yimei simcha ve'halel, umadlikin be'en hanerot be'erev, al pitchei abatim. Now it's the observance. On account of this, and Ori had the question when it came in, the sages, the chachamim, in that generation, they made the takana. They enacted a new holiday. There should be 8 days that begin on the 25th at night. They're days of joy, days of praise, and we light candles in the evenings and the doorways of the houses each and every night, mishmonat haleilot laharot ulegalot hanes, to demonstrate and to reveal the miracle. Therefore, we light it as such. V'yamim elu hanikrayan Chanuka. These days are called Chanuka. Vein asurin behesped v'tanit kimei Purim. You're not allowed to fast or to give eulogies in these days, just like Purim. V'adlakat hanerot bahen mitzvah midevei sofrim. You create a Megillah. And the lighting of the candles is a mitzvah from the level of the scribes, which means D'Rabbanan, particularly the level of D'Rabbanan, just like the reading of the Megillah. Now, by the way, if you look at the top of page 2, it says Rambam, the halachot of Megillah, right here on this page, Halachot Megillah v'Chanukah Perek Gimel, chapter 1 and chapter 2, are about Purim. Then chapter 3, that's when he gets to Chanuka. The Rambam was also very careful in categorization. Why do I care about this? Because Chanuka and Purim, they seem to be very related to each other. There's a very important distinction. Purim has a book. Chanuka doesn't have a book. Purim has other mitzvot, by the way, Ben Adam Chaveiro. Chanuka has no such mitzvot. Right? Oh, to try to understand what's happening. Rav Soloveitchik was very keen on the words that appear in Halacha Gimel, the second line to the end. Laharot ulegalot hanes. We could highlight it here. It's at the end. You see it says here, Laharot ulegalot, these two words, to demonstrate and to reveal the miracle. That's the point, to demonstrate and to reveal the miracle. So the question is, what does it mean to demonstrate and reveal the miracle? What's going on with that? Why do you want to demonstrate and reveal it? And the answer very simply is what I said when we started. Davka, there's no book. Okay. So where does the story go when there's no book? Where does the information go when there's no storage device that's external? There's no book. So where's it going to go? Yeah, it's going to go into one's seichel, their mind. The lighting of the lights will tell the story through that. But the verbalization of the story, exactly as Meir just said. By the way, Meir, it's the holiday for Meir, Le'ha'ir, lights. So that's that. But you're absolutely right. The point is that somehow the telling of the story is bound up with the recitation of Al Hanisim. It must be, because we're saying it over and over again. We're telling the story. Notice that in these halachot over here, we have a story that is told to us about the war, and principally about the war. When you flip the page and you go to Al Hanisim, now go back to Al Hanisim, what's missing from Al Hanisim? It's a glaring omission, right? We're pretty familiar with it, right? Talks about a lot of things, but it doesn't seem to mention the miracle involving the oil. It's not there, right? It's just missing. When you just think about it and you look at it here, you start wondering, wait, there's a major part of the story is not in the picture. I didn't give you these other sheets. It's too many pages. So when the Gemara will ask in Masechet Shabbat, the key Gemara, Chaf Aleph Amud Bet, Masechet Shabbat, it'll finally start talking about Chanukah about halfway down the page, and it says, My Chanukah. Right? My Chanukah, Rashi is over here on the top. My Chanukah al Eza Nes Kavua, right here, see? For what miracle did they establish Chanukah? Upon which miracle? And it tells you a story. So here's the story of Chanukah in Shas. And we know it almost by heart, right? The Tanur Rabbanim Kafi Bekislev, Yom de Chanukah Timnai Inon, Lo Lemes Behon, Lo Litanot Behon. There's no eulogies, no fasting. Shek Shenich Suyevanim LaHeichal. I have you here in English from Cincino, right? They defiled everything in the Heichal. And Uchshagavra Malchut Beit Chashmonai. The whole war is Uchshagavra Malchut Beit Chashmonai v'Nitzchum. When they won the war and they were victorious, right? There was only enough for one day. They lit 8 days from it, and the next year or some later year, L'shana Acheret, they established these as days of holiday with praise and thanksgiving. And that's what you have in the Gemara. That is the recitation in Shas. That's the whole story. And where's the war in the story? It's a footnote. When you go to Rashi, Rashi tells you here, we saw already, right? That where are we? My Chanukah al Ezenes Kavua. What was the miracle? So what was the miracle that they made the holiday for? Sounds like it doesn't have to do with the war. Has to do with the Nes Bach Shemen. Yeah? So, when you look at Rashi here, how do we express the Yom Tovim B'Hala V'Hodah? So what are we going to do? So, Lo Sha'asur B'Malacha, you might have thought it's Asur B'Malacha because it says Yom Tovim, and a Yom Tov usually means that you don't do Malacha. But no, that's not prohibited. Shlo Nikbe'u, they were not established. Ella, Likrot Halel, V'Lomar Al Hanisim B'Hodah. They were established in order to recite Hallel, which is not our topic for tonight. It's its own tefillah, which doesn't mention a single word about Hanukkah, and to recite Al Hanisim in the davening. And yet, when you get to the story of Al Hanisim, it's not mentioning the Neis Pach Shemen. Yeah. So, as is well known, you have two channels. The Neis Pach Shemen, that's the lighting of the candles, and Lahar to Legalat Hanes means I have to tell the story in my words, right? I'm revealing the miracle because I should. There seems to be Rav Soloveitchik thought the same way on Pesach. There's a mitzvah of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. He thought on Chanuka, the Rambam thinks there's some kind of a mitzvah almost of Sipur, Ma'aseh Chanuka. But if you're looking for cues, what to talk about, you can find it in Al Hanisim. And the reason why I think this is important and germane for this year, and I cherry-picked various perushim on Al Hanisim to take us through it, so that hopefully you'll find 1, 2, 3 things that when you're davening, you daven better, particularly this year, because we've just come from a very intense period of war. Having just been on the mission, Laura and I were just on the mission now in Israel, and I could tell you pretty much everyone we spoke to, and Jeff was with us one of the days, pretty much everyone said the same thing. It's not over. It's not over. Now, is it the war between the wars, or is it the same war that's just not finished? I need to let it down. But at least for consideration, like, okay, so how do we read into the... We know all the Nisim, we don't have to recount all the Nisim again and again right now, although you should try to think about it when you light the candles, but also when you recite Al Hanisim. Because in Al Hanisim here, we have a lot of different expressions that hopefully we can look into tonight. Let me pause here for a minute. Does any word jump out at you in the first sentence of Al Hanisim that seems like it's not like the other words? Or that seems strange to be in here? Huh? Milchamot. I'm thanking God for being saved, so what do I thank God for the war? So that sticks out for sure. For sure. Any word here that doesn't look like it's Hebrew?
Yeah, Pulkan.
Pulkan.
Yeah, what is that? Yeah.
What's Pulkan? So, right, it's also sticking out. Right, these are words that are sort of flashing. By the by, we recite this tefillah when in the bracha of Hoda'ah, of thanking Hashem, and we say in the prayer Va'al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, and the miracles that are with us, your miracles are with us every single day. So, in that context, we're now elongating or elucidating in this period of the year the miracle of Chanuka. It's not a recitation that is like Yala V'Yavo, where there's an element of petition. Here's what we'd like to see happen. May our prayer reach you. May we go back to Yerushalayim. Save us. That's not what's happening. It's not what's called the Hazkarat Me'ein HaMa'ora, what the halacha calls the Hazkarat Me'ein HaMa'ora, like a Yala V'Yavo, like a V'tein Talamat Livracha, which either is petitional or is somehow halachically bound up with the nature of the day. And it's not really, you're missing the character of the tefillah if you haven't mentioned it. Au contraire, I mentioned, I think, at the beginning, if you forget Al Hanisim in Shemon Esrei or in benching, you don't go back. Why not? Forget the Yala V'Yavo, have to go back. Here's why. You said the words V'al Nisech Shebechol Yom Imanu. So these are the miracles of today. Would you like to expound upon it and say more and more and more? You're invited to do so. It's not actually a chiyuv. But now that you said now I'm going to list off, right, a particular time of the year that reminds you by Bazman Hazeh how crucial this is to who we are as Jews. You follow? It's expansive. By the way, the Gemara, and I didn't give you this, not our sugya, but the Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Chav Daled has a debate. Do you say Al Hanisim in benching at all? So the Gemara says, why would you think not? Why would you think yes? Why would you think not? Yeah. So there's a whole sugya there. In the end, it concludes yes. But the case against is which bracha in benching is about Nisim? And the answer is none. It was a trick question. None. So where do you put it in? You put it in No Delecha. But if you look at No Delecha in benching, you're thanking Hashem for Eretz Yisrael and Torah and this and that. And when you read this is about miracles. But it doesn't really fit. When you say, you understand? And when you're davening, Davka, what's happening in the davening? Right? And here's an example of it, Rebbeinu Shalom. The Nisim and the Nisim and the Nisim, and you're listing it up. It doesn't fit really in Birkat HaMazon. So there's a question, where should it go? It's not going to go in the bracha about Yerushalayim, because that bracha is actually petitional. in the end. Bonei v'rachamav Yerushalayim amen. Please, uvenei Yerushalayim, please build it. There's no request over here. It's nothing. It's just praising Hashem.
When they put it with Hametiv.
Huh?
When they put it in Hametiv.
So it's a question why they put in Hametiv. Hametiv is written later, and later enough means that at various layers of the Gemara, it's not clear if Hametiv was written yet. The fourth bracha, that was after Churban Beitar. So that's already 138 of the Common Era, plus minus the Common Era. So, yeah. So, or actually 135 Common Era. So, the Rav wanted to understand, Rav Soloveitchik also, go back now to page 2. This is the only other source I'm giving you to look in directly. This is a little more sophisticated. He wants to know, why did they put the word pork in here? It's Aramaic. The rest of the tefillah is in Hebrew. What did you put in an Aramaic term? You inserted an Aramaic term. Listen to what the Rav says. And this is, to me, this is like, I hear the echoes of our moment. Yeah? And you'll hear it now. This is in the Sefer Harei Kedem, put together with Michal Shurkin of the Rav's Torah. V'nira, d'hinei b'lashon HaKodesh purkan hu lashon geula p'diya. V'im hayinu ba'im lahaskir inyan zeh b'lashon HaKodesh, hayinu orim al ha'geula. Al nisim v'al ha'geula. But redemption. But it doesn't say that. It says instead, purkan. Okay? V'harei kaimelan, she'en maskirin shum shliach begeula. D'hinei na'geula shayach rak l'kodesh baruch hu levad. When we speak about redemption, only God redeems us. There's no human being redeems the Jewish people. Only Hashem. And that's what we say when we say every morning in the davening. There's no one like you, Hashem. There's a king who redeems us and saves us. And we have this in the Medrash as well. Right? V'chein Yeshayahu explains, Ufduya Hashem Yeshuvun. Let's see on Barina. We said that pasuk over and over and over again from the book of Yeshayahu in our Mishaberach for the Shvuyim, for the captives. And the redeemed ones of God will return to Zion in joy. It doesn't say Peduya Eliyahu and not Peduya Melech HaMashiach, Peduya Hashem. And therefore it says Geule Hashem in Sefer Tehillim in chapter 107. V'keven she'anu mazkirin b'tfilat al hanisim et hanitzachon ha'chashmonaim. Since we're mentioning the victory of the Chashmonaim, Shuv ein lahazkir lashon geula el mazkirin purkan. Shuv mi lashon prikat ol hagoyim. Purkan lifrok is to throw off a yoke. Throw off a yoke that was put upon us by the nations. That's not redemption mamash. El lashon sheyesh bo gam mashmaut shel hakalat hamasa. It lightened the burden. So we say al hanisim and davka. We're not going to say the word geula because it's not the geula, and we mustn't confuse it with the geula. But what we say here is that because there was a human being and there was human agency involved, Purim and Chanuka, we still want to acknowledge that we're thanking Hashem for it, but we're also giving credence to the human agency that brought it about. Not Chalila without Hashem's help, but requiring human agency. Leaving Mitzrayim did not really transpire because of human agency. And in case we're confused about it, that's why we don't have Moshe Rabbeinu in the Haggadah. Here we're willing to celebrate heroes. And the admission of heroes, just think about it. Why are we mentioning these names of these people in the middle of davening? Esther. Everything is from you, Hashem. Everything is from you. Right? You ever hear the expression, Ein od milvado? It's a pasuk. You know what that means? Everything else is ephes. It's zero. Zero. Mordechai and Esther is zero, and Chashmonim is zero, and Tzahal is zero. 0, 0, 0. Everything's just from Hashem. But that's not what that's not what's written in the tefillah. You understand? So the Rav says, okay, you have to be careful. You're not going to call it geula, but you can thank Hashem, and you can give thanks to the agents, the shlichim who helped bring it about. Those things are not in contradiction. We didn't have that previously. Ufduya Hashem Yeshuvim L'Tzimbarina. Not Eliyahu and not Mashiach. Hashem, only Hashem. When it's geula, that's the pigeon. But when we speak about Purkan, that involves people. Lesson number 1. Al Hanisim, Bazman Hazeh. And I'm sure for you, as it is for me around this table, so it's a little bit of a, groupthink kind of thing. It's like self-reinforcing, because we're in an echo chamber, is the expression I wanted to say. We're like-minded. We find many wonderful Jews. I love them dearly. But they're willing to learn also some midrashim to thank the the fly that went into Titus's nose and caused him to get sick and die, and they're thanking the sand that covered the Mitzri that was on top of the Mitzri killed by Moshe Rabbeinu, and they're being makir tov to the water, and Moshe can't do the makot there, and so on and so forth. Lechna lirot shlom achecha vet shlom hatzon. In this parsha, past parsha, what does the Medrash say? It means you should be sure to also check into how the sheep are doing. The Medrash says you have to be careful with your possessions and you have to take care of them. So it's such a sensitive way that Chazal dealt with Hakarat Tov, even for objects, for lower level creatures. So how about human agency? On Purim and Chanuka, their names get into the book. And it's not a zero-sum game. Is it true? Ein od milvado? Of course it's true. But it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game to be sholel, the human agency. And when you look now look in the Rambam, again, that we started with, and just look at it a little bit deeper. Did you notice over here that it mentioned that Hashem was the one, Hashem, Asherichem Aleihem Elokei Abotenu, God of our fathers had mercy, V'hoshiem miyadam, v'hitzilam. He saved us from their hand and he rescued us. He saved us from their hand and he rescued us. But then it goes on. Then it's talking about the Beit Chashmonah, Bnei Chashmonai. If he was really religious, maybe he should have left them out. They were complicated people. I mean, their generation was great tzaddikim, but you know what happens in the end. 200 years, but it ends in the Churban because, unfortunately, people don't end up getting along. So that's one thing just for consideration. Purkan. Human beings matter. Next slide, if you will. In the bottom here, page 4, I didn't give it to you in the sheet already. You have here, this is the Ner Mitzvah of the Maharal. The Maharal explains, just for want of time, because I want to see a bunch of different things to send you out with different ways to learn Hanism in a deeper way. This idea of the nace of the Nes Pach Shaman is a crucial nace, because it signals that the main thing that happened, which was the war, was all from Hashem. It was the what you call the wink from Hashem that the whole thing was from God. V'od yesh lomar shikar ma shekavi mechaneka b'shvil shim nenatzim levanim rak shlo yanira shaya kan nitzachor hazeh al yedei nes she'aseh Hashem yitbarach v'lezem ikocham gvorotam. It wasn't obvious that the miracle of the war was actually a miracle. It wasn't so obvious to them. So lefichach na'aseh nes al yedei nerot hamenorah. And therefore, there was another miracle involving the cruse of oil. So everyone would know came from God. But it wasn't so obvious. There was, you could say, plausible deniability. And therefore, when they wanted, it was also from God. Yeah? And also, Adavka, this nace was done, right? He goes on to describe it more in longhand, but what's the point? You could have very easily seen a war unfold. Seemed like the odds were against the Jewish people. They won, and then you'll find a lot of clever ways of explaining why. It's the brilliance and the ingenuity and the luck and the this and the that. So the Maharal says the Maharal says this Nes Pach Shemen is the gushpanka. It's the stamp that tells us that everything that happened was actually from Hashem. Yeah, we're waiting for a Nes Pach Shemen. Maybe I think there was a Nes Pach Shemen. We'll come to it a little later this evening. But we just lived through this.
I think the 6-day war as well.
The 6-day war and this, yeah. I mean, just I for want of time, I'm not elucidating each time, but we just lived it. Now we're very close to it. It just ended. If it ended, the official end was Shmini Atzeret. But you just think about everything that's transpired, and it's like. And by the way, at the end, it's still a choice. You could still have people explain. There are people who explain it that way. By the way, when Hanukkah finished, also there were people who explained it away as the luck of the draw, the mightiness of the Jews. Ad Yom Hazeh, people try to explain it that way. We know better, but it's our Masorah. But the Maharal was focused on this idea. Don't think that the Nes Pach Shemen was the Iker. The Iker was the war. The Nes Pach Shemen gave it the check mark, the 2 check marks that the whole thing was being written by Hashem. Okay, maybe a basic point, but I think something here. And there's more, obviously, also about the Tuma and the Tahara. I'm eliding that now because just for want of time. But he goes on to describe this, and I think, and then fairly, when you're reading the story in Al Hanisim, you're just talking about the war because it's really the mainstay. The Nes Pach Shemen, that's going to remind you each night. Oh, that's the visual that goes with the auditory and the verbal. Okay. So what about this milchamot? Tzitz Eliezer quotes Nuchsam Sofer. What's ala milchamot? La'achar she'omrim kvar mikodem lezeh al yeshuot. We already talked about the salvation. So what are you going back to the war? Mipnei she'la'achar sheba'a hatshua, after the salvation, tzrichim lehodot az gam ala milchamot b'bichinat odcha Hashem ki initani v'atihilu yeshua. Now what did the Nuchsam Sofer mean here? We normally read it as, I thank you, Hashem, for you have answered me, and you have been my salvation. But this word can also be read as, Initani, you caused me to suffer. At the time, I didn't want it, and I didn't understand why I needed it. But when the time came afterward, I could look back, and I could thank Hashem, even for the fact that there was a war. That something came out of it that I didn't foresee. Now, I don't think we know what that is yet for us, and I think it's very hard for someone who suffered losses in this war, and there's so many families like that, to read this and just sort of cavalierly say, oh yes, it's all for the best. But we thank Hashem for the ability to fight wars, the ability to stand up for ourselves. Here Rav Rimon, in his beautiful book on Chanuka, writes, Lachein, Afshe ein anu rotzim b'milchama, b'diavad, anu mevinim, sheyesh kan chelik me'hanhaga elokit al ha'olam. It's part of how Hashem runs the world. In the end, it will bring the world to a higher place. Am Yisrael hitalel la'achem milchamot elu. They were raised up. Hidbara zehuto ha'leumit v'itchaska etzlo ha'toda'a hadatit v'aruchanit. Something about the religious, the national identity was formulated, yeah, and the religious and spiritual element was elevated. Milchamot elu lo rak hechziru et hametziut l'matzav shayta kodem milchama, ela ha'elu otanu l'makom harbe yoter gavoa mezukak, heviu otanu l'birur u'lechizuk. He wrote this well before the last 2 years. This is in a book he published a few years ago on Hilchot Chanuka, and he has a whole page called V'ala Milchamot? And what is he saying here? The war is terrible. We don't want it. But the war brings clarity. The war brings people closer to their true sense of identity. It sharpens their perspective. It brings them higher spiritually. So, again, you want to talk about Nisim in the last 2 years. If the word Nes means a banner, had a lot of banner moments among the Jews in the last 2 years. Yeah, too many to list. The number of people and things that happened. Look at Segev Kalfon, hostage lighting the menorah at the Kotel. It's quite remarkable. Quite remarkable. Okay. Kedushat Levi, in his series of essays on Chanuka, he wants to know, what does it mean by Yamim Ahim Bazman Hazeh? Yeah? In English, in those days, at this season. He thinks that what it means is that there were many, many miracles that happened to Jewish people. There was a war against Sisera and Sancheriv and other things. There weren't holidays for all these things. There were great moments. There were many wars the Jews fought. They didn't make a holiday every single time. Why did they make a holiday for Hanukkah? When this holiday, there was such a great illumination for the Jewish people in the days of Matityahu and his children, that it's actually being revealed until today, Bazman Hazeh. It still exists today. That's what the Anshe Knesset Gedolah saw. That's what they saw in this time period. And they enacted that this time period remains a special time period for the Jewish people. It doesn't mean bad things can't happen. Terrible things can happen in the world. Yesterday in Australia be proof. But the point is that it's considered still an auspicious time. And that's why we're saying, Ufurkan kehayom hazeh. What does that mean? He says, Virudati klamar shekehayom hazeh apurkan vatshua she'az b'yamim ahem b'yimatijah. We can have it again today. And to feel that there's something in the air at a time like this. Who made that decision? Anshe Knesset Gedolah made that decision. And what authority? on the authority that they have vested in them by the Torah in the book of Devarim in chapter 17. The Torah there says, the Chachamim, you have to listen, lo tasser, you listen to what the Chachamim say, and therefore we make the bracha, as the Gemara in Shabbat on Chav Gimel says, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, God, you commanded us, you sanctified us in your mitzvahs, and you commanded us to light the Chanukah candles. So the Gemara says, V'hechan tzivanu, where did God command us this? What does the Gemara answer? No, milot tasur. The Torah says, listen to Chachamim. So the Chachamim enacted this. The Kedushat Levi says, that's why you keep saying, by Yamim Hayim Bazman Hazeh, you should realize there is some kind of an impression that was left on all of Jewish history by this event. Chanukah, Purim too, but today we're focused on Chanukah. Yeah? So just for consideration. Now we have something a little more ambiguous. What do I mean by ambiguous? B'yimei Matityahu ben Yochanan, Kohen Gadol Chashmonayu v'anav. So we know Matityahu was great, he was a great person, and he's the son of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. No one's sure if it's Matityahu Kohen Gadol or Yochanan Kohen Gadol, right? So Matityahu Kohen Gadol, Matityahu was never the Kohen Gadol in the Beit HaMikdash as far as we know. He never actually served. There was someone else there, not our friend. But Matityahu was called the Kohen Gadol because he was very honorable, and he lived in Modi'im. I was joking around on Shabbos from the pulpit, and the Greenspans. My parents could look out the window, could see where Hanukkah happened. It's right there. That's the whole area. Chashmonaim, Modi'im. That's why it's called that. He says, right. That's where this story happened with Matityahu. That's where he's from. It's not far from Yerushalayim, area with olive trees, all different things. And there, Matityahu is Ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol, and he's a Chashmonai. Might be the name of his family. They're all different ideas. This one of the Mefarshim wants to say, Chashmonai, like a Chashmalai, is the electrician. So Chashmalai, Milashon Chashmal. But the one who uses Chashmal is called the Chashmalai. So what's Chashmonai? Chashman. What's Chashman? Chet, Shemen. 8 days oil. They call them the Chet Shemen people. The 8 days of oil people. Is it accurate? Is it a nice cutesy idea? I don't know. But I bet next time you daven, you're going to think, wow, I don't know. Rabbi Moshe Wolfson, Chashman. You have the Rosh Chodesh. They were the Greeks had a decree against Rosh Chodesh, Shabbat, and Mila. And how do we counter it? With a ner. Chashman. Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh. They were against Rosh Chodesh. Shabbat. They didn't let us keep Shabbat. Mila. That's no. That's the thing. And then ner. So what do? We have nice ideas, no? It's warm. I'm not telling you that that's accurate historically. That's probably just a family name. I don't know. But you darshan it. But people want to know really who is this Yochanan, if it's really Yochanan Kohen Gadol. The Gemara in Brachot here on the bottom of the page tells us an incredible thing. It reminds us, Al ta'amin ba'atzmachad yomotcha. Do not trust yourself. Don't believe in yourself. And rest on your laurels even until the day of your death. How come? Shahar Yochanan Kohen Gadol shimush b'kehuna gedol 80 shana. Ulvasof naset tzduki. A tzduki was someone who did not believe in the oral tradition. A Sadducee, they only believed in the written tradition. And when were they poking around and moving around in the world? In the time of Chanuka. Could you imagine that Matityahu has been Yochanan Kohen Gadol, maybe the Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who after 80 years as being the Kohen Gadol, left the faith? The Vilna Gaon rejected this idea, wholesale with two hands. No way that someone else named Yochanan Kohen Gadol. It can't be the same guy. But when you look at the following shaila that came up, this is a shaila asked of Reb Zilberstein. Reb Zilberstein is the son-in-law of Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He was asked the following shaila: Talmid Chacham Gadol BaTorah, she'aviv shana upiresh, is a guy who's a great Talmid Chacham. His father went off the derech. Upirek abiatzmo ol Torah mitzvot. He stopped observing. Hayim yazkir et shmo b'petach sifro. Can he write at the beginning of his book that he's thanking his father? Sefer Chubar al Reuven ben Shimon l'mishpachat such and such. At the same time that everybody knows that Shimon the father left the Torah behind. What about maybe Shem Rishayim Yirkov is a pasuk? You should let the names of the wicked rot. So you're going to put it in the book? Ve'echaz kirat shmo b'sefer Torah. How can you put the guy's name in? He's in Russia. He left. Tshuva. Says Reb Zilberstein. Chazal, we're matakin on Chanukah. We say B'mei Matityahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. And look, Yochanan in the end became a tzduki. It says so in the Gemara in Brachot. So how do we say his name? So he says, this is what I heard from Chaim Kanievsky, right? His brother-in-law, Chaim Kanievsky said, Shehu laharot lanu she'ena kadosh baruch hu me'uchu mekaper sachar kol beria. Hashem will not take away the reward owed to a person. Even if in the end things didn't go well, but the good things they did are not negated. It's not that Hashem wiped away everything for all time. His son was about tshuva. His son saved everybody. So maybe we can learn also. Shemuter laben lahazkir shem aviv. Machar Hashem barach lo mekapeach schar aviv shebitchila karav hashana v'gidel oto Talmud Torah. The Vilna Gaon, by the way, I think it was the Gaon, who said, no, that Yochanan Kohen Gadol is being referred to here. It's a descendant of Matityahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Matityahu had a son named Shimon, and Shimon had a son named Yochanan, and that son, Yochanan, he went, as they say, off the there, became a tzduki. This was the time when the Sadducees are buying and selling the Kehuna Gedola till Chanuka. It's a bit of a disturbing idea, but you could see it in a much more positive, I think you could see it in a much more positive light, speculative, and that is that, look how great Matityahu was. Look what he came from. Yeah, we don't mention, I don't know, Rivka bat Lavan or something, but also a great person. It's a decade. Look what she emerged from. It's huge, huge. So the Bnei Yissaschar picked up this idea, and he says, why is it Ben Yochanan? And he also quoted the same Gemara, and he also had an idea here. And what does he write in the idea? That maybe, the whole thing with the Tzdukim is they don't accept the Torah Sheba Al Peh. They just don't accept it, right? And he writes over here, I don't know, maybe it's not the same person, I'm saying it's speculative, I don't know. B'derech ha'efshar, b'derech safek v'efshar. Even if it's correct, it's very far to say chas v'shalom that he was completely a Sadducee. It must be he made a big mistake of some kind. He's leery to say such a thing. Okay, so 80 years he was the Kohen Gadol. Okay, so he had a mistake for temporarily. He quotes here the Kitvei Arizal. We'll skip it. Hinei ba Matityahu beno v'tikein mitzvah b'Torah sheba al peh ve'ir nirotel l'dorot. You understand what I'm saying over here? Remember we said at the beginning, there's no book for Chanukah? So where's the book? It's a Torah Sheba'al Peh. It rests in my heart. It's in lighting the candles, and someone say, why do you light the candles? Oh, I have a story for you. It's in davening, in the tefillah. And in the tefillah, these are the words that I speak. Rabbi Sachs, very beautifully, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said, other nations, they speak about, they have books of philosophy about faith, but principally, mainly, our prayers are expressing our faith. You want to know the language of Emunah? It's called Tefillah. Tefillah is the expression of Emunah, verbalization. So, what is this expression of Emunah? It's the Emunah that Hashem's involved in the world and involved in Jewish history, and He sends human shlichim, and He enables the Chachamim, He trusts the Chachamim, and we trust the Chachamim. We have Emunah in the Chachamim that they can make a new Yom Tov. Now, I don't know, different generations work differently, I guess. So you have to, I guess it comes and goes whether this interpretation is too radical. The Gra, on its own merits, thought it was wrong. But do you understand what it means that you could have two brothers or a father and a son, where one was on one side of the Hanukkah story and the other was on the other side? And you could have today, Lo Aleinu, in the same family, one brother, goes to war and the other one says, I'm an anti-Zionist. Yeah, c'est correct. But Bimei Matityahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol. It could be, it's that one. Yeah. But all hope is not lost. Look how his son picked it up. He did tshuva, and he came back.
Lavdil, the son of Hamas, right?
Yeah, okay, Lavdil, but yeah, Taka related, yeah, Taka. Okay. For want of time, I want to show you also. Just skipping ahead, it's very interesting. Look at the beginning of this of the Al Hanisim. Look how it's talking about in the second paragraph. B'mei Matityahu, it's Matityahu and his sons, right? When the Malchut Yavan was wicked, came against the Jewish nation, right? Against the Jewish nation. Okay, and then at the end of the third paragraph, Ula Amcha Yisrael again. When we fought, when we did this and that. We were the Jewish nation. But in the end, V'achar kain ba'u v'anach lidvir beitacha. It's a subtle shift. We're Hashem's children. And as Hashem's children, we came back home. V'achar kain ba'u v'anach lidvir beitacha. That's when we came home. So look how it's Matityahu, who is the son of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, but Matityahu was united with who? Uvanav, with his sons, generation. And when we came back home to the Beit HaMikdash, Vanecha, Lidvir Beitacha. So look with me here on this page. This had made a deep impression on me. This is from the Pachad Yitzchak and Hilchot Chanuka. So he writes, he points out that on Purim, this last paragraph does not exist. On Purim, it just tells you Al Hanism, the days of Mordechai and Esther, the rescue, finished. That's it. It says that they hung Haman and his sons. So here we have a whole extra piece. I couldn't find who this was. He doesn't say who it is. The connection between prophecy and the power of the Torah. Even though generally we say that prophecy does not belong in the world of psak, if we line up two Sanhedrins next to each other, when we need to know which one is greater than the other one in wisdom, we say that if there's a Sanhedrin that has also Nevi'im, then it's a bigger Sanhedrin. When did that happen? That's called the Anshe Knesset Hagdola. The Anshe Knesset Hagdola was a group of Chachamim that included also Nevi'im. And therefore the Anshe Knesset Hagdola are on the highest possible level of being able to make decisions for the Jewish people. You with me? The Anshe Knesset Hagdola lived in the time of Purim, etc. V'yesh lan lahavi ra'aled v'rav Misugi Demar, the Amra al Beit Nishaskin Sagdol Shalibam Kuf Chaf Zikanim. There were 120 elders, and there were prophets among them. When we think about this, with regard to the Beitin, we find out that there's actually generally something stronger with regard to the ability for that Beitin to make an enactment. And we say the beginning of there's a question at the beginning of Masechet Megillah that the Chachamim of the Mishnah could not cancel something that was made by the Anshe Knesset Hagdola, because we have a principle in Halacha: a later court cannot cancel an earlier court's decision unless it's greater than it in Chachma and Minyan. Chachma means wisdom, and Minyan in number. So Anshe Knesset Hagdola automatically beat everybody else, right? So it's not just the reality of this because the Chachamim of the Anshe Knesset Hagdola were greater, but because they can't be any other way, because the Beit Din Anshe Knesset Hagdola had also had prophets in it. So when they were together with the Chachamim, then it was on a higher level. Yeah, but eventually, what happened? There was no more nevuah. By the time of Chanuka, there's no more nevuah left, and after that, there's no Beit Din that is greater than the Beit Din of the Anshe Knesset Hagdola. That finished before Chanuka ever started. Okay, so that's what happens for Purim. Purim is takana of Anshe Knesset Hagdola, but Chanuka is not made by Anshe Knesset Hagdola. It's too late. You know who made it? The Chachamim of the Beit Din of the Chashmonaim. So they don't have any. What's their standing? What's their standing? They can do it. So he says as follows, and this is the Chiddush. He says that there are two ways in the Jewish nation that new enactments happen: the greatness of the Beit Din that makes the enactment, and that's one, and two, when something spreads among the Jewish people. There are two ways to ratify things: from the top down or from the bottom up. And when it came to Purim, it was clearly top down. Anshe Knesset Hagdola made it. Mordechai and Esther wrote it. There's a book. We're going to tell you. We're going to do it. Chanuka. מכיוון שחנוכה הוא המועד היחידי שאין שום הכרח בהלכה כי אותו הבית שתקנוהו בית דין הגדול מכל הבתי דין שיעמדו אחריו. Hanukkah is the only of the holidays that doesn't have a Beit Din that you could say is unimpeachable or that no one can go after him. Ikar smichato shel moed Hanukkah hu al amud hasheni shel koach hatakana. Dano itpashtet bichlal Yisrael. The main reason why we have Hanukkah is because the Jewish people accepted Hanukkah. And Bekan hu hamakor ladgashat haTorah banim b'maor haChanukkah. V'achakach or achakein ba'u vanecha v'kavu. The gama kviyut mishtayachet hi levanecha. Dahainu mishum de Torah banim mityaches. Davka, it relates liklaliut knesset Yisrael Torah zeh shel banim motzmin chlol shel yichud haSanhedrin u'mamid in ha'inyan akoach samchut shel klal Yisrael. You want to know the power of this Yom Tov? The Jewish people chose to do it. And when you look in the story, in the way the story is told, it was specifically the genesis of the holiday itself has to be written into the tefillah. We have to know that the reason why the Yom Tov happened is because the Jewish people decided to make it happen. They came into the house, they purified it, and they established the Chanuka elu odot lalel. And the truth is, if you look back in the Gemara, which I didn't print for you, right? But the Gemara here says, notice, Lishana Acheret Kavum Vasum. It was a later year when they established it and they made it into a holiday of praise and thanksgiving. How come? Because when it originally happened, it hadn't been ratified by anybody yet. I was talking about this with somebody earlier today. The original mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles, just light one candle. If you believe that what happened is real, light a candle. Doesn't that sound familiar to things that happen today? Something terrible happened in the world. And Chabad announces, you should light an extra candle with your Shabbos candles. The original light an extra candle was Hanukkah. In a world without electricity, everybody's lighting candles all the time in their house at night. Light a candle, put it near the door, put it in the window. Publicize it for outside, not to shine in the house, but to shine the people outside should see. So how does Hanukkah start? Ner Ishu Beito. Everybody's lighting a candle. Later it develops. That's Chachamim decide. Okay, now we're. And that's why there's a machloket. Are you adding? Are you taking away? You understand? It's very much the people decided. So Rav Hutner writes in the Pachad Yitzchak, that's the point. The whole point is that the children accepted it upon themselves. Why didn't they have to say it in Purim? Because Purim is Ashkenaz Agdola. Purim is still Nevi'im. Purim is Mordechai and Esther with Ruach HaKodesh. Purim, there's a whole hint in the Torah that really the book was supposed to be written, and Esther is a book in the Tanakh. And Hanukkah could have had a book in Tanakh, and Chacham said, no, we're not on that level anymore. We're not going to have a book in the Bible for it. Is there a book of Maccabees? It's there. It's a history book. It's not. Is it accurate? It's not accurate. There's discussions. But this holiday, this came from all of us. This came from us. Not that we made it up. I mean, we made it up. It means the Chachamim made it up because they understood how to read what was transpiring as something so incredible. In closing for tonight, Benusach va'acha came ba'ovanecha sfas emes. And then it says then a later year that they established it. The Shana Acheret, it was established. V'atanhu mirov choshech hagalut Yavan, ha'unishpol madrega tachtonav lehergishu kol kach begol ha'yeshua ad shachar kach nit'alu ma'at madregot shari tahara ad shechazru liot b'madregat avdei Hashem. The darkness of the time period of Hanukkah was so dark that even though they won the war, I'm ad-libbing what the Sfas Emes is saying, but he was saying they're on a very low spiritual level. I would say not only is our generation a low spiritual level in many ways, but we see wonderful ways people have awakened, but also how wounded so many people are. A lot of damage. We don't have the perspective yet. It just happened. Al Hanism Bazman Hazeh, we know something happened Bazman Hazeh again. Something big, I'm not prepared to write an Al Hanism, but I can think about an Al Hanism when I'm saying my Al Hanism Bazman Hazeh. Va'azir Gishu Vevinu. Later on, they felt and they understood Godel HaYeshua Latzeit Mi Malchut Yavan LaMalchut Abori Barach, to go into the kingdom of the Creator. May be blessed. V'gam bishmona Yemei Chanukah Kmo Shenasa Nes B'Neirot Kinasa Nes B'Tarat Nishmat B'nei Yisrael Shedomi LaNeirot V'Nitaru Madrega Acha Madrega Be'ela Hayamim. I mean, that's why the person who's Sfas Emes says he underlined it, because he goes back to it every year to read it. It's mine. So what does it say? That just as there was a miracle with the candles, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, every person is the candle of Hashem, the Neshama, there's a sense of Tahara that comes about, and that actually it's a stepwise kind of a thing. 1, 2, 3, we reenact it. 1, we keep adding. Lekach Nkra Chanukah, Shenitchanchu Be'ela Hayamim Lachzav V'Nachlat Hashem. That we were educating ourselves, we were educated, becoming educated to go back to get closer and closer to Hashem, and it's a process. It's a process. People ask always, what was the nace in the first night? Since the first night, I thought to conclude with this. Aside from the miracle that the candle lit for all 8 days, we have to thank Hashem that He gave us any miracles during this time. They found a cruise of oil. They could have found a tanker filled of oil. Could have. It would have been. It would have said, "Oh, look what we found! It's amazing." But they found one little cruise of oil. Rakhiba Yatera. It shows extra love that Hashem has. Sheratza Makom Baruch Hu Lasa Neis Lavotenu Vehem Hayu Tzrichim Neis Hazeh Laharim Nafshoteim Shayu Nemuchim Mirov Chashchar Galut. Because of the exile, they were on such a low level. God wanted to give them something to feel good that there was something going on here. It could have happened another way, but Dafka in this way, from the little cruise of oil. So here's what I want to conclude with. I think you decide where you want to put your eyes and what you want to see. From what just happened the last 2 years. A person who's a mamin not only sees a story of Emunah, but also looks at all of the incredible examples of people whose neshamas woke up as a result of this. And some of this is still going to play out in the future. I hope it'll continue to develop, Mosi v'holech. But just the idea that some of these individuals who went through so much suffering and hardship, whether it was on the battlefield, whether it was in captivity. We all saw that video, which is really just incredible. You have sugya tokea b'toch habor, if you blow the shofar inside a pit. But I never saw the sugya hamadlik b'toch habor. Mamash madlik, they're lighting the candles inside. You saw it.
Video 2 days ago.
I'm talking about it. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I don't know.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, everybody who knows saw the video, yes? There's a video circulating of Hirsch Goldberg Poland and Father Hostages inside. I know they'll say, oh, it's propaganda, this is that. You know what? Inside that the propaganda and what have you, there's a nitzachon, that they were able to light the Chanukah candles, that they were able to say Shechiyanu, to have the mitzvah. Now, do we wish it ended differently? Of course. But it gives chizuk. Each one is butzina kadisha, a holy light, and to look for those holy lights in the darkness, and to see them shining, and to take from this Yom Tov a lot of sweetness. Hopefully, everyone takes a donut home. It's unbelievable, and to be able to find those pockets of light and to develop them and to feel we're getting closer. The Ala Nisim prayer provides us with that ability to think. We didn't get into the semantics of, I thought it was too technical, Rav Tel Rivam, there's a lot going on over here, and what the enemy tried to do, what we got back. Okay. But I wanted to focus on these elements because it's what sings to me this year. Ala Nisim Bazman Hazeh. What do I take from it that I can look at it and say, this is where Klal Yisrael is so vital in our moment. Thanks to the Nisim, the Purka, and the Gvurat, and the Tzuot, and even the Milchamot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not only for Avotenu, but for us. By Yamim Hahem Bazman Hazeh. We should be zochem to hear much more by way of good news in this period of time. We should hear Yeshuot, V'nachamot, Bekarov on all levels. Ad B'yad Gold Tzedek. Amen. Amen. That's it. Ad Kan for tonight. Thank you for joining.